Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to day number 3 of Mondial Tech 2018. This is the ring stage. This is a stage where we will be delving into many topics indeed. Just to remind you here, if you haven't already been here before, today perhaps, or maybe the other days during the week, again, we've got another day tomorrow to get through as well. Basically, we have 8 different themes, 8 themes across the week, and each half day is a theme. The theme right now is all about comfort and well-being in the car. So we're going to jump into panel discussions, jump into great conversation, healthy, productive, insightful conversations as well. And at the end of this session, we'll be treated with, once again, listening to many different ideas. We've got 8 different startups ready to stand here on stage and share their big idea. Basically, we've got altogether 64 different startups, each with a great idea, great concept, ready to share that idea with the jury members and with an audience as well. And then hopefully at the end of the session, they'll be able to walk away as winners, taking the Mondial Tech, a wonderful 3D printed award with them as well. Right, just to remind you once again, those of you that wish to have perhaps the translation service, all you have to do, you can see it on the screens right in front of me there. All you have to do is follow the instructions there, take a picture of that, and pop yourself onto the app, grab yourself some earphones, headphones over there as well to my left, and then very simply, with a click of a button, you can listen in French or in English, depending on which language you wish to have through your mobile phone. Right, also remember our hashtag for this whole week, in fact. Apparently it's trending. It's not just trending across Paris, not just trending across France, but apparently, so I've been told by our social media experts, it's trending pretty much across this part of Europe as well. Let's keep it going. We've got Mondial Tech, hashtag Mondial Tech. So what you hear, quotes, ideas, images, selfies, whatever you wish to share, you can do that right here with using the hashtag Mondial Tech. And also, just let me remind you, everything you see here on this stage isn't just here on this stage. We open up the boundaries, go beyond the borders, literally, because we are live streaming. So we have cameras all the way around. This is live streaming across the world. All you have to do is go to the Mondial.tech website or the Mondial Tech YouTube channel, and you can find the link there. So share that out among colleagues, family members, partners across the world. Anybody you feel would like to join you and us together here at the ring stage today at Mondial Tech 2018 here in Paris, you can do that and share that link away. Right, let's get straight down to business, straight down to the first session of the morning. And as I say, it's all about comfort and well-being on board. 2 gentlemen will stand on this stage and have, again, a productive conversation and sharing insights about the way forward and really what's happening, certainly in that topic. So again, it's not just about popping in a car. Like today, popping in a taxi ride in a car, comfy seats. In the future, it's going to be far more than that. You'll be working in the car. You'll be doing different things within the car as well. Technology will be changing also. So I'm intrigued just as much as you are to hear really what's coming next, certainly in this topic. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage our first speaker on the panel, Comfort Master expert from Foreca, Mr. Samuel Boudot. Samuel, please join us on stage. And together with Samuel, we also have a director from Deloitte, Mr. Andrew Dinsdale.
Is this thing on? Good. So we've got like 80 slides to get through in 30 minutes here. I'm not joking. So my name is Andrew Dinsdale. I'm a managing director in Deloitte Consulting based in Detroit. My focus is on customer experience. So why am I here talking about comfort and well-being? Well, as we shift the product from being really, hardware to software and services, there's going to be exponential change in the types of product formats and services that customers will enjoy. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about that. And I know, Sam, you want to quickly introduce yourself as well?
So as mentioned, Samuel Baudu, I'm working at Forcia as a comfort expert, and you will discover what I'm going to tell you about the shift or evolution from comfort to well-being on board.
So by the end of this morning's session, we're going to certainly cover a lot of these topics around how new vehicles, how mobility will need to be configured to meet these new needs of customers. What will be some of the rights and the responsibilities of drivers and passengers in this environment? Will we really be able to disconnect ourselves? Is driving getting in the way of texting, or is texting getting in the way of driving, right? So what are we going to do to fix that and those paradigms that consumers have and their expectations have in vehicles today? And then what does value look like? So a consultant's not a consultant without a 2x2. So I'll talk you through this very quickly because it kind of sets up some of the futures that I want to discuss. First of all, on the x-axis, it's all about who is driving the vehicle, right? So is it a personally owned vehicle, or is it a shared service of some sort? And then you've got on the y-axis driver and autonomous. So there's going to be a future. We go to future 3 where that's a personally owned vehicle that's autonomous, and I think we're all expecting that maybe 10, 15 years from now. Future 2 is happening right now. That's Uber, that's Grab if you're in Indonesia, that's Didi in China, right? That's the world of car sharing, what they used to be called taxis and buses and public transportation. But there's going to be different expectations in that future. And finally, they both come together around perhaps these robo-taxis in future 4. And to me, that this is going to create maybe an environment of 2 very different types of vehicles, highly customized. These will be, again, personally owned and pretty much unique to the individual. And then on the other side, there'll be very kind of homogenized utilitarian products that maybe, and I use the term here, unpublic transportation. So this is transportation on demand. You're going to get in this autonomous pod potentially, and you're not in the public so much, but your vehicle is participating on a public highway. And will have a much different format and footprint. So let's talk about some of these futures. And I personally can't wait for this future. I have three cars in my garage today, right? My vehicle, actually, it's very rarely in my garage. It's usually at an airport. My wife's vehicle, and then also my daughter's vehicle is sitting in there when she's not at college and she's home. I want to get down to 1, right? I want a vehicle, an autonomous vehicle that takes me to the airport, comes back, takes my wife to work or drops her off at yoga. I'm going to buy the refrigerated trunk or boot and have it go to the grocery store and pick up groceries. And I'm going to customize that product to do all of these journeys in one day and be much more utilized, right? So this future is going to be, again, much more customizable, much more personalized. Higher margin products with much lower volumes, in our opinion, and then again the customer's experience in that vehicle will be much more robust. And we see these pictures, right, of these kind of really sci-fi looking vehicles with touch screens and panels and new engagement methods for the vehicle. So where's the seatbelt in that picture, right? What is safety? What is responsibility going to be like for that vehicle? Will there be a steering wheel? What will I do in that vehicle? And we'll touch on some of this. Whoops. Thank you. Now, I don't believe cars will end up even resembling this sort of 2x2 of today, certainly customizable to such a high degree. And this patent from Ford kind of contemplates a whole new set of activities and experiences in the vehicle. Movable seats, a projection system. This patent did still suggest the vehicle will be controllable by a driver. Certainly an exciting future where we're going to have new activities and new things in the vehicle that will maybe make my comfort and my well-being sort of a much better experience. Then let's get over to shared and sort of driver-driven vehicles. I can imagine, and I took a taxi here today, fairly, I'd say, averagely comfortable. Not as comfortable as the nice Citroen Uber I took yesterday. I was more stressed out about getting here on time and where's he going to drop me off, and those factors really created more stress for me than the vehicle itself. But we are going to need to think about a vehicle that is for those, shared, driven, 5-minute rides across town versus 300 miles to an airport. But I certainly hope it's an upgrade. So over there on the left that's an actual picture from a taxi inside New York. I think that's the air conditioning coming from the driver's cockpit into the back of the vehicle. And I certainly want shared mobility to be an improvement on dealing with a subway in Tokyo, right? So we have this opportunity to create much better on public transportation where we're in our own zone and our own working environment. And then finally, in terms of some of these futures, there's these shared autonomous pods, and there's a number of them in this room today. Will potentially require completely new vehicle formats, completely new business models for the OEM. Do they get into fleet management? This is all about maintaining these vehicles, which will be on the road, where my vehicle is on the road 10% of the time and sits in an airport or a garage 90% of the time. These vehicles will be on the road potentially all the time. It'll create a whole different need for materials, for the product itself, for maintenance, etc. And we foresee this future certainly in major cities, maybe in the Shanghais of this world, to really be the predominant type of transportation that the governments and the municipalities will mandate at some point in the near future. Again, these solutions, we think, if you think about form and function, and then form again, these will be highly configurable, easy to maintain, and highly connected vehicles, and obviously a future that probably a lot of us are looking forward to. But okay, this is great. This sounds, like some consulting ease and nice vision, and I think we've seen a lot of companies talk about these types of futures. But what do customers think? So every year, Deloitte runs a global consumer study, and what's sort of interesting to me is, and we're sort of highlighting just the French market and the U.S. market. I'm going to say only half of the consumers out there really look to this self-driving car as being something that's going to free up their time and give them an opportunity to focus on other activities while in the vehicle. Again, still only half of the consumers think it's going to be safe to drive an autonomous or be in an autonomous vehicle. And still kind of the jury is out on if they think it's going to be a positive experience. Now I want to contrast this to China. Right, so here's a market that I think kind of gets it. Maybe it's because the phone came before the car for many people in that market. But fully 80% of people are anticipating focusing on other activities while in the vehicle. It's a marketplace again that is much more, I'd say, ready for autonomous vehicles and for this future. Maybe they're getting the story from Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, and some of the sort of technology companies that are really creating a connected experience in the real world. So maybe there's some reasons behind this. But I thought that's such a big difference between the more mature car markets of Europe and the USA, and in China. And then we looked a step further, and we looked at what activities would customers want to do in this autonomous vehicle. And candidly, it's not that different to what we want to do today as a driver or passenger in a vehicle. We want to get on Instagram and Facebook and WeChat and text and do those types of things with our mobile devices. Obviously, reading comes up, sleeping, eating. I thought I was kind of surprised gaming was so low, but maybe if you're a gamer, you're going to game anywhere. So it might be less of a number for us to focus on. But when we show this to OEMs, and they're spending all this money on connectivity in the vehicle, on new interfaces, new head units, new touch and feel systems, well, does the customer really expect that? And do they expect to participate in sort of watch that type of content in the vehicle or just on their device that they're bringing in? So our study that I think gets published tomorrow gets a little bit more into the brought-in versus built-in and brought-in rules, right? People want to use their own device. And I thought this was fascinating for today's discussion and for the panel later. Fully 1/3 of our survey participants said they get motion sick. So you know, my daughter, you know, so data point of 1, 5 minutes into reading a book in a car, and she wants to throw up. So what is that going to do to the anticipation that we're going to create this living room on wheels if we've got 1/3 of our consumers that are going to be motion sick within, you know, five or so minutes of the journey. But what do I want? Well, personally, I want a time machine, right? So I managed to do a deck here and get Bill and Ted and Doctor Who and Back to the Future on one slide, but not a time machine like this, right? I mean, seriously, getting that hour commute in Detroit back every day, 2 hours there and back, whether it's for working, whether it's for experiencing, you know, something personal, a book, reading, or maybe it's listening to some records because I never have time anymore to get out the old record player, right? I think we have this great opportunity with this future to really, you know, to create a time machine for consumers, give that time back to them, and as an industry, we need to deliver now on these emerging expectations. Now, to bring us back down to earth a little bit, Samuel, you're going to talk about comfort and well-being and the evolution of that in our vehicles today. So, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. So I have the pleasure to continue the discussion of the evolution from comfort to well-being on board, and to try to answer and to think about for the automotive industry, there is a need for the expertise to be reloaded. So I think the presentation will be managed in a couple of seconds. So I've been working in the automotive industry in the field of comfort since 1997. So I will share with you a part of my experience in this topic. So for sure, we need a starting point to discuss. I chosen this one, which is the picture of a chauffeur, which is correctly seated. So it means, unfortunately for this chauffeur, no comfort at all. Everything was driven by aestheticism. So it means you can see that the posture is well described. No possibilities of freedom. And why is this? Why aestheticism? It's because it's the posture, the attitude of the chauffeur represents the social state of the passenger. We were also the owners of the car. So when we start from here, how the comfort has been introduced into our car. I will say step by step. So you will recognize here a picture of a famous French car. You can notice that the materials which is used for the seat are very flexible, and also the slope of the cushion is important in order to stabilize the posture. Another example, more obvious, the rounded shape of the backrest is here to permit to maintain or to limit the back displacement of the driver during the trip. And final example, which is also a funny one, because it shows that at this moment, we were also offering to people functions which were not dedicated to drive. So it's not something new to offer to people the possibility to relax or to get asleep inside the vehicle. Okay, so these are very simple examples, but how comfort has been introduced, or how comfort, or when comfort became a strong objective for the comfort engineers. It became a strong objective for comfort engineers when automotive car makers decided that they want to offer comfort for everyone. So this was the objective. We are engineers. We belong to the automotive industry, so if we want to achieve such an objective to offer comfort for everyone, for sure we have to follow a clear and rational process. This is the process that we have followed, 3 steps. First one, we have to understand what is the human diversity that we want to take into account. So at the beginning, it was mainly anthropometry, size and weight. The second step is to design a product with a clear objective in terms of accommodation. So the well-known accommodation rules was I want my car to be able, 90% of the driving population to be able to drive my car with a certain level of comfort. And final step, for sure, we want to measure. We want to be sure that the product that we have designed really will accommodate 90% of the population. So now, let's focus on the final step, measurements. Two types of measurements, subjective one and objective. What does it mean? Practically, you ask a tester panel to do a task. So here on the upper part of the slide, you ask them to drive a car at a certain speed, here with different curvature, different radius, and you ask them about their feeling, comfort feeling, while cornering. To collect their feeling, it's very easy. You see on the bottom part, one scale, one extremity dedicated to discomfort, the other extremity dedicated to comfort, and you ask them to put a cross. Very simple. For sure, engineers, in parallel, wants to measure objective things. So we measure the geometry of the car, we measure the characteristics of the seats, we measure pressure distribution on the body, temperature, humidity, vibration, whatever you could imagine. And by doing this, step by step, experiments after experiments, you are able to understand clearly what are the physical characteristics which automatically create discomfort. So the objective was to offer comfort for everyone, but what we achieve is no discomfort for everyone. This is where we were at this moment. For sure, this kind of experiments and researches has been done by many OEMs, many university academics, and it permits and it brings another very important added value. It's to understand that, oh, maybe the relation between comfort and discomfort is not linear in this way. Maybe we have to understand that discomfort is something that could be measured, but it's really not the same to try to decrease discomfort which is measured than increasing comfort. Why? Because comfort, to feel comfortable, I need to receive stimulation coming from aestheticism, design, the fact that on board I've got some technical features available, which bring me, I feel enjoy, I feel some pleasure, I feel well inside this car. So this is the first element. So there is a big difference between the comfort that I perceive and the discomfort which is measured. If we use another comfort model, where comfort is a result of enjoyment and non-suffering factors, if you look at the green straight lines, so on each of these green straight lines, you have the same level of comfort. So it's a little bit surprising because it said that I can be in a situation when I receive a lot of physical stresses on my body, but I feel comfortable. How is it possible? So I will give you a personal example. The first time that I came inside the Ferrari, the seat inside the Ferrari was not fitting my body so well. I have to take a posture which was not my preferred one, receive a lot of lateral acceleration, as an example. But nevertheless, it was so fantastic for me, a lot of pleasure, a lot of speed and so on, that when I think about this first experience inside the Ferrari, I like it. For me, it was really fantastic. So it means that, so to sum up, we could say that suffering factors or discomfort is a kind of standard, whatever the humans. But for the comfort part, it's really, it's come from, personal preferences, habits, culture, expectations, and so on. Why personal expectation or personal culture is so important? Another example. So I hope, or I guess, I don't know, that you recognize this car interior. So it's the famous Citroën DS Palace interior. I'm pretty sure that for some of you, when you look at this picture, the feeling that you have is very clear. Paradise or hell? Why hell? I'm coming back to your point, unfortunately, due to motion sickness. Even if you measure the level of discomfort of the seat itself, it's very low. Me personally, I never been sick in such a car. So when I look at this picture, it brings me back when I was a kid, going on holidays with my parents and my sister. So when I look at this, in my mind, everything is positive. I feel really, enjoy, and it's really pleasant to look at this picture. So now, let's talk about difference between comfort and well-being. Yes, apologize, but I'm not going to give you definitions. Why? Because for me, using definition is useless. Why? Because the first thing is that from comfort to well-being, it's a continuity. Since long time, each comfort engineer in the automotive industry want to provide the best experience for the end user. Whatever you call it, okay, the best comfortable experience or the best well-being experience, but it was the same objective. But what makes the difference is today we have more and more possibility, techniques of measuring the human states, mental and physical ones. So the evolution and those techniques of measurements, you remember we start to measure very physical dimension on the car interior and on the seats. And now today we are able to monitor heart rate, brain electric activities, blood flow, and we can do these measurements in a lab, but also on board. So live monitoring of the human state inside the vehicle. So for me, the evolution from comfort to well-being could be seen as an evolution of the techniques of measuring the human states, physical and mental. The evolution from comfort to well-being could be seen as the evolution of understanding better a human state through measurements. So it means that when we say that, it means that for the automotive industry, nevertheless, if we want to achieve comfort and to provide the well-being experience to end user, we have to change something. The first thing that we have to change is to rely on knowledges which are not the core knowledges of the automotive industry. So I want to speak about neuroscience, psychology, physiology, data science, first things that we have to change. We have also to accept to modify our well-known design criteria. We have also to change our ecosystem. As an example, we need to be more open with medical partners. So everything is fine. We have new techniques of measurements. So maybe, okay, let's do it. Let's create the best well-being experience on board for everyone. It's easy. We are engineers. We have techniques of measurements. Okay, let's go. Yes, but maybe not. There is still a difficulty. Why? Imagine that I want to offer for all of you the best well-being experience on board. So when I say to all of you, I mean to each individually. I want to fit your perfect well-being expectation. And my idea is to say, okay, and I will offer this through a massage. Because massage, for sure, is synonym of relaxation or well-being. These pictures are a small sample about the human diversity that I will have to consider to design my well-being experience with a massage. It depends on, your expectation, what you think, what you expect in terms of massage, maybe what happens during your childhood, and so on. So there is a lot of human diversity. And here it's only a small example. So we have also to integrate this diversity into a relevant protocol for assessing the well-being, which is not so easy. A lot of factors will change your mindset. So this has also to be considered. So to conclude, yes, moving from comfort to well-being is a realistic objective, is feasible today, thanks to new techniques of measurements, which permits to have a precise idea about the human state, once again, mental and physical, in lab and also in board. So it creates for the automotive industry a huge opportunity. It's really fantastic to provide and to imagine new products, new services, green fields all around us. But I have to admit that to offer for each of you the best well-being experience on board is still a challenge. Thank you for your attention.
Are we done? Are we done, gentlemen? By the way, before you go, I'd just like to ask you: is there anything you'd like to really ask each other about what you've just heard from each other? Anything you'd like to specifically, or something perhaps you don't agree with, perhaps on what you've just heard?
That's a good one.
Are you sure, Andrew? No, I think what was interesting in our two presentations is to really understand the perspectives in terms of end user, in terms of consumer, and what we have to do practically in-house to build those new comfort experience. So for sure, one point that I would like to mention, and it's really a bridge, is that when we will have to design or imagine the best well-being experience on board, for sure we will have to define a specific use cases. And the use cases, we have to validate those use cases prior with consumer survey or data to be sure that this is what the end user wants to have. Maybe someone don't want to receive a massage inside the car.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I think tolerating that commute, right? Stressful. It's an hour of competitiveness sometimes as you're driving, and you don't want to get cut off by somebody, and you're in this other place when you're behind that wheel. I think that goes away, and we're doing something we want to do in the vehicle, right? That's going to create, I'd say, maybe an easier path, right? That I'm already invested in an activity that I want to participate in. It isn't driving; it's something else. Right, so it is going to be more like a living room, but it's going to create new challenges for you, Samuel.
Yeah, so it's so interesting to hear. Again, what you were saying earlier on about the different activities when you're not driving, the different activities that you'll be doing, and also what you mentioned earlier regarding a third of people interviewed said that they get motion sickness. So just the thought of looking at a mobile phone or perhaps a newspaper or reading something just gives that motion sickness feeling. So it's an interesting challenge that I'm sure we'll be hearing about in the next panel. Ladies and gentlemen, please say thank you to our panelists Samuel Baudou and Mr. Andrew Dinsdale. Thank you so much. Right, what an interesting way to kick off this first panel. So remember, it's all about comfort. It's all about well-being in the car. Our next panel is going to move on, basically taking what we've heard just now and just taking it to the next level, perhaps, where we have an intriguing panel full of experts, people who know exactly what they're talking about, and really probably also know some of the secrets of really what's happening in the future as well. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage our mighty set of panelists ready to join us right now. Please welcome Academic Director from National Transport Design Centre from Coventry University, Dr. Cyril Diels. Is that right? Come and join us. Please join us. Take a seat. Joining Dr. Sarah, we also have the founder and president at ESP Consulting, Jean-Bernard Fabre. Please join us. Also the founder and managing director of Manis Mobility, Michael Grandoff. Please join us, Michael. Lab director, GIE PSA Peugeot Citroën from Renault, Anne Guillaume. Please join us, Anne. Also the Comfort and Wellness and Health Solutions Division Manager from Forestia, Anne-Isabelle Mallet. Please join us. And finally, the gentleman who's going to shape this conversation as the moderator in the right direction. Please welcome on stage the Group Technology Strategy Manager from Forestia, Mr. Frédéric Charon. We also have one more addition to our panel. Please welcome on board as well, Stephanie Schneider. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. So it's a pleasure to have you after this brilliant presentation we had with Andrew and Samuel. And I'd like really to go further on the points that were introduced with Samuel, that is completely an open field, the perimeter of the well-being, that we have to define exactly what it's about, but we get already some clues. And among the works that has been done, I'd like to give the speech as an introduction to Mr. Cyril Dills, who has been working on this topic, and I try really to put together a scheme and a definition of the different streams that we get in the well-being. So, Cyril, beware, we are trying to encompass different factors, and so we are not only in an engineer world, so try to make it crisp and easy.
Thank you very much, Frederic. So we've been interested in understanding what comfort and well-being means in future vehicles, and particularly when we talk about shared and automated vehicles. And we believe that there's major challenges to this comfort and well-being. One is the fact that we're simply not in control of the vehicle. We might be traveling in mixed traffic environments. We are in a moving environment, and very importantly, the customer expects to be able to do things other than driving, making its time more enjoyable and more productive. So within that context, comfort and well-being is a very complicated aspect. It's very multifaceted. It's got psychological, physiological aspects to it, and so trying to understand it is quite problematic. In the future, where we all become passengers, we perhaps can learn something from other industries where the passenger comfort experience already has been looked at quite in some detail. And that was our starting point, to look at the aviation industry and see what they've been doing. And what we're trying to do at the moment is to extrapolate that to road transport, to a future of shared and automated vehicles. And this is where the model that you can see here on the slide is based around. We can see 8 different factors that have different size of the circle, which at the moment are hypothesized to be difference in importance. So, for example, what we can see at the top is peace of mind. The whole idea of trusting the system, perception of safety is, we think, a very important aspect for the overall comfort and well-being of the occupant. Another very important thing that already was alluded to in the previous presentations, the physical well-being is actually a real challenge. We're designing for a moving environment. It's not a static office. So we have to take into account these accelerations, etc. So motion sickness was already mentioned a few times. It's an area that we're doing a lot of work in, and it's actually turning out to be really problematic to design around it and to actually prevent it. Usability, very quickly, it's a traditional aspect of comfort. One thing perhaps to notice is that at the moment there's a lot of effort being put into content consumption. But I think if we think about a productive environment, content creation is actually where we have to focus on. And so providing usable interfaces to actually create content is still a big challenge for the overall comfort and well-being. The fourth point, proxemics, is our sense of control over our environment. So being able to control your own personal space is one thing that's very important in the passenger comfort experience. And we've seen that in many of the examples of the concepts around. And it's certainly something that can be explored in much more detail. Pleasure, of course, is a very obvious one. We see lots of the concepts that allow us to have a lot of pleasure. But again, it's very important here to take into account that these sort of basic human factors elements and taking into account that it's not a lounge and wheel or an office and wheels. So yes, we can create new pleasure experiences, but we have to take into account these basic facts. Similarly, with social experience, the environment, sharing the space with other people, how do we design for this? How do we go from cocooning to a shared space are real design challenges. And finally, two elements that are somewhat related, aesthetics and association. They are elements that have a big impact on moderating our overall comfort and well-being experience and have a very strong design element to it and allow for a lot of exploration. But by providing these sort of different factors, we're trying to guide our research, but also our design practices to making sure that we make sure that we think about all these different aspects of comfort and well-being.
Perfect. My entry point would say here, let's make car autonomous and turn the car into lounges and done. You cover nearly everything. You bring the people you want, you can communicate, you can feel on board completely, and that's perfect. But we are still a moving object. So the very first point I would like to ask and to ask with Anne working in the lab and very much focused on also the jobs you have done in the past years on safety on board the vehicle. Which are your remarks with all the inputs that have been done by Andrew, the comments by Samuel, and this dimension in terms of safety, because we are in a mobile object.
Yes, thank you, Frédéric. What I would like to say, it's of course it would be a compromise between the safety and the well-being, because we have some dreams that we can do everything in an autonomous car, but it will be in the future. The first automated cars will have partial automation or conditional automation, and the driver will have to take over the driving. So there will be a lot of manual driving periods, and the passive safety should remain the same. So, for instance, if you are in an automated car and then you have your seatbelt, your backrest that you want to incline, there is still other road users, other cars that are manual, and the occurrence of an accident is possible. So in this case, if you are in a decline position, there is a risk of what we call submarining if there is a frontal impact. That means that the seatbelt will slip on your abdomen instead of retaining you on the seat. And in the abdomen, there is soft tissues, so there will be a lot of injuries. There is much more risk in this way. So we need to stay in the right position in the automated car for now. Otherwise, there is a lot of risk. And to go further, if we think of the future automated cars, we have not the good tools to improve the passive safety. So, for instance, current dummies are not well designed to study decline position and to see what are the new safety systems we have to study. So we have to work on this. Furthermore, in the same way, the numerical modeling, the human body modeling are not well adapted to this new risk. For instance, if the driver wants to Swift swell, so the seat, so you are not just in the front looking the road, and you want to go in another direction, then we do not know well what is the kinematics of the occupants, and the global human body model are not validated in these new positions. So there is a need of bionicle research to improve the passive safety systems in order to be adapted to the future automated cars.
That brings me to a point directly, because we are speaking here with different positions within the car, and obviously the driver will toggle from being the driver and being the passenger and the occupant of the car. And there is one point that is, let's say, a big question mark, and I will ask to Stephanie, because that's very much a point that you are focused on, is those transition mode between modes, and the human at the middle, and the fact that he has to understand where he is. And I think it's really an itching point for the...
Yes, it's really a high challenging point, because during the transition mode, as Anne said, there will, before being totally autonomous vehicle, we will have some steps before where the driver will become the passenger and will have to take rapidly control of the vehicle. And we need to provide a secure and intuitive transition mode to those systems, that so that the driver will not be stressed. If he has a stress experience, he will not be able to be in a good well-being mental, as we've seen here in the graph. We need to work on this and to offer proper transition mode between those systems, and correctly have the capacity to move the seats rapidly to take if we need, and those aspects must be work, and is high challenging.
So it means here that we have we need to have a perfect interaction of the vehicle with the user. So there is this notion of reinsurance for the user to know exactly where he is and what is the situation is. Is, and which mode, and what is its level of control, and what is controlling the cars. It must be, even in our car today, is sometimes a little bit fuzzy, exactly what I'm doing and what is the car doing. On this direction, typically for Jean-Bernard, do you think that what's your position regarding the relation of the car with the machine, the human with the machine?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question, because as Samuel said at the beginning of this conference, we don't have to forget that we talk about car. The car is moving, but also the guy which is driving or not, his physiological and biomechanical adaptation are moving also. It's not a straight line; it's always moving also. So for the moment, we talk about stress, but for example, when you are doing sports, a sport is a kind of stress, but your body is adapting to this stress. So I think one of the main challenge is to understand where is positive stress and non-positive stress. This is the first answer that we have to give. For this, we have to understand exactly what Samuel said, by having some kind of data, physiological signatures, to understand what is going on properly inside the body when you are experiencing your new driving experience. That is the first key point. And I think this is the major problem that we have to deal with. It's to understand when the situation is becoming good or not good. And after that, we can understand what is well-being, comfort, and if the solution of automotive car is good for the people inside the cockpit.
Okay, Michael, well, you are the kind of oddball among the assistants, because you are not an expert in any field. So you are from companies that is following and investing in startups. You get a holistic view on what is happening on this field. And beside automotive, because you get one of your focus that is aircraft, and so completely different perimeter. So your broad watching exactly what is existing. What is your opinion on what is going on now?
Well, our venture fund is based on the thesis that what we're experiencing in mobility is a multiplicity of disruptions at the same time. And among those is certainly autonomous, but also the mobility service model that has emerged and electrification, as well as the data and communication that we all already experience in vehicles. And all of the discussion that has already taken place is very much on point of the challenges that many of our startups are trying to grapple with, particularly dealing with issues of passenger as opposed to driver, and passenger in a vehicle that may not have a driver ultimately, and a shared vehicle where you may not want to have to figure out how to make yourself comfortable in the vehicle. You may not want to have to touch controls that are being touched by a dozen other people that have been in the vehicle that morning. And you may want all this to be automatic and for the car to adjust to your preferences when you enter. And this is all very possible. We have in our portfolio 2 companies that have in-vehicle sensors to understand who's in the cabin, what their position is physiologically, so that the car can adjust safety and other measures using a combination of thermal imaging and cameras to create a physiometric vision that allows the passenger to be monitored for comfort and for safety. And I think there's a whole host of issues that arise when you start focusing on a passenger who's going to be doing other activities in the vehicle. Has been talked about, and all of these are going to be addressed through innovation. We're seeing it every day, new ideas that are coming through and that we're evaluating, and that I think are going to come commensurate with the time that we get to the mainstreaming of autonomous shared vehicles.
Okay, here we come again on the fact that it seems every kind of topic you can address in any field beside automotive, you say, well, we get data, we have to measure. Once we get things measured, you can do anything. So that's the answer. That's typically what we hear. But once you get the data, what are you doing with the data, and which are the expertise, the knowledges that are behind? And I will go back also to Jean-Bernard, because Jean-Bernard, we have not presented you in detail, but that's very much the core of your expertise, to retrieve data from sportsmen and work on the tools that they are using. Beside Lacoste, you're also working with Airbus, helping the people from Toyota to win the 24 hours race, and so you are the man in the shade connecting the man with the machine. So what's your opinion on that?
It's a good question. I think the data is, for sure, it's the key point. But having the data without understanding why, that's a big mess. This is the first thing. The other thing is what we have to deal with is also the precision of the data, because now. I'm sure most of you, if I ask question, do you have, for example, a little watch or a little stuff that can collect your heart rate in here? I think most of the assembly will see, yeah, today I have mine, or maybe this afternoon I will use it. Now it's very common to have this kind of stuff on yourself. But the question is this precise enough to have a good conclusion? Because if the sensor is not precise enough, you won't have the good conclusion. And if you are, for example, in a car, and you want to give an answer to a physiological adaptation that you are supposed to measure by a sensor, and the sensor don't give the good input, you will give the bad answer. So you won't have the well-being or the good comfort, and you will experience a discomfort. So this is very, very, very difficult to understand, as the physiological and biomechanical shame are also always moving, always changing. So we have to have the data very precise. We have to have the signatures. So the signatures can collect the data with the good precision of signatures to understand how the physiological adaptation are moving. So it's really, really difficult to understand. And for sure, I'm very happy with this, because it's a new field of investigation. So it's very interesting.
So, Anne-Isabelle, you are in the very center of this big turnaround that we're seeing here, and there is additional on that, on all the questions that you are raising on your part from the measurement. There is also the user and the multiplicity of users that were the points that was raised also by Samuel.
Yes, we see that when we envision the autonomous driving, we have enlarged the scope of possibility to offer a well-being situation to the end user. And this is precisely where is the danger, because we have enlarged the scope. So we have multiple solutions, and we need to be efficient in the choice we will do to offer well-being to the end user. And thus, the key point for me is before measuring is to know who is seated in the seat. So to have contextual information, why is he traveling from point A to point B? How long? What is his agenda? So we need not only physiological data, but contextual data to understand precisely what is the use case. And then, of course, then after we will measure some criteria to know the stress level of the end user, but there is part of the what makes the human being which is not measurable. I mean, you have, for instance, some preferences. You can measure the temperature of a person, but you will not get through this measurement what is his preference in terms of temperature. We know that no one likes to be wet, but in terms of hot or cold, there are some slight differentiation between men, women, between if you are living in hot countries or cold countries. So I think we cannot solve everything by measurement. We need also to consider this is why we go to neuroscience, and we have also to enlarge the scope of our knowledge because you have some cultural information, you have some habits. All this make the human being who is seated in the seat. And so this is not as simple as just measuring some physiological data. We need to have an interaction with the end user to know more about him.
That's an immense job. That means having the data means that we have to have a sampling and better knowledge of every single population we are addressing. That means it appears to me, hearing to you, that each time we open a door, we discover 10 doors behind it that we need to open on that. So that's not an easy path in my understanding. Any comments globally on this difficulty of the challenges, Cyril, maybe?
Yeah, we are, for example, working on holistic comfort and with a focus on thermal comfort, and we're trying to look at different aspects and try to mathematically model it. And it's hugely complicated. We got all the data, but what you make of it, the interpretation is hugely difficult and really context dependent, as you say. But the thing that I was thinking of is that we're automating driving, but should we be automating the experience? So why are we sensing all these bio signals, and what are we doing with this? So, the act of being in control of your environment is actually good for your well-being. So just another sort of perspective on the fact that what are you actually doing with these signals?
For example, when you deal with motorsports. Now you all know that, for example, the drivers that are in the car, for example, Formula One or during the 24 hours of Le Mans, you can collect some kind of data. For people like us, it's very good to have data because we can help the director of the team, for example, to make choice. For example, we can say, this guy is experiencing fatigue. Maybe in 2 rounds, he will have a problem. So maybe we can adapt the strategies to make some kind of stuff to help him whether improve his mind focus or make the guys go out of the car, maybe 2 rounds before he should go, and put another driver. And at the end, when he's out of the car, we have to find, based on the data that we had when you were piloting, what to do when he's outside of the car, to individualize the answer. So when you go back, he's in a good shape and he can drive very, very fast and be the best. So I think that having this understanding will also provide information to give counter action.
Yeah, just to briefly comment on that, I completely agree that when we talk about performance or discomfort, measurements are really important. But coming back to the presentation with Samuel at the beginning, where we look at comfort and discomfort being two different things, perhaps. If we talk about comfort and well-being, that's beyond discomfort and beyond performance. So this is more of a subjective experience where the measurements of biosignals perhaps has a different interpretation and different importance.
If I may add, in terms of measurement, we can also consider two ways of measurement. You have the measurement you want to do in the car, embedded with the experience, but you have additional measurement you may want to have in the lab. For instance, in Faurecia, for years, as Samuel explained, we have developed a methodology to measure comfort, and now we are on the way to measure well-being, because we found out that it's possible to measure well-being, and maybe the solution is not to monitor the data continuously in the car, but to be able to have proven solutions so that before implementing the solution in the car, we have proven it's reliable and it will bring well-being. And then after, we can just collect data to be more accurate in the solution we want to provide. Because over-measuring can kill the measure, I would say.
Well, one point I would ask to Stephanie, because she has the perspective of the OEM, of the car maker, and centering all these data and also synthesis of the data for the scope of the interior in terms of your job, in terms of synthesis, must be incredibly complicated.
Yes, yes, of course, yes. And first, I'd like to add, I agree with what you say, Anne-Isabelle. I think it's the first step is to be able to have good measurement for improve the comfort in the car, but not to use it directly in the car when driving. Up some solution like secure system like measure fatigue or measure perhaps heart attack could be very interesting, but we have to be careful to propose some use case that are really benefit for the client, and not to offer something that is useless inside the car. If it is the case, he will not use it anymore and will not put it on, and it is not a benefit for the client.
That's the point I wanted to address, because here, okay, we went past the data, we said we get the expertise, we're going to learn, we're going to do things, and I get just the impression that we are to try to cure and take care of the passenger without him knowing exactly, if he likes what we plan, and we just accept that we will measure all these physiological constant and thing. Can't we have a position of the user that say, I just don't want to be monitored. I don't care. All the stuff that you are pushing to me is completely useless. So open question to all of you.
I think people want comfort, and they want it in the most convenient way. And demographically, the trend has been actually that there's less concern about these issues and more concern with how quickly and inexpensively can you make me comfortable in the environment. And I think that's what we're going to see as we move into this. That said, you're absolutely right that the amount of data that is going to be generated and is already being generated by vehicles, by passengers, by drivers, and by the sensors in the cars is tremendous. And the controversies over access to that data will continue, as it will in society at large, for many decades to come. But I think the general rule when it comes to comfort of passengers in the vehicle is going to be that there won't be too much upset on the part of passengers if they're able to easily be put in a comfortable state when they get into a shared vehicle.
So your point is to say typically a user would accept to give their data, accept to be measured, providing the value that they get in exchange is the right one.
If I get out of a car and I say this trip I was a little bit warm, and I can sort of just indicate that on my phone, and maybe I get into the vehicle the next time and it's made a little bit cooler for me.
Yeah, but I'd like to catch your attention on other points. You also may know now that we can evaluate the quality of sleep. And there are lots of data in the literature now are coming, because most of the people now are experiencing with their little stuff. Oh, do I sleep well? I want to have my information if this night I have a good sleep or not a good sleep. But now all the scientific data that have all my colleagues that have worked on this specific area, they shown that if you know that your sleep is monitored, you don't sleep well. So this is a very interesting question. Data is good, but how do you use it, and is it really good for the customer at the end? So this is one, and the second point is about, because you talk about fatigue and stuff. I think another way is to choose the good direction. For example, going on health matters such as heart rate and stuff like this. For example, yes, probably it's going to be the future, and it would be perfect if we can save life, because you have monitoring tools in the car. But for sure, for the moment, we need a human to analyze the stuff, because the precision of the measure is not good enough, and so it can't work. But for example, if you talk about fatigue, now fatigue is quite well understood, and not only by the physiological point, but also on the mental states. Because there is a dichotomy between what you experience in your mind and also what you feel in your body. But there's also an interaction between them. And now it's very well known. So maybe there are some field where we can go in a, well, not in many years, but other one, it's maybe in the big future.
It's quite an interesting dimension, because as here we get we are several things that are stacking up. So according to what you say, there is the accuracy of the data, the knowledge that goes behind the expertise, and the ability to have the right software programs that will analyze this data, that brings its slides of uncertainty, I would call it like that. And afterwards, through this chain of uncertainties, we find ourselves to tackle subjects like health, wellness, safety, things where wellness, I may leave it apart, but if you are dealing with health, we are dealing with safety, here you can't do with all uncertainties in terms of process and data. So what is the limit, and up to which point can we consider that all this chain is reliable and makes sense? That's a broad subject.
I'm sorry. It's my key point. So health is okay. We have a big problem now. The problem is that we want to help people to be in a good shape and to be in a good health. So we use sensor. I took my watch again. But we have analyzed in our laboratory, and also some colleagues in the US had analyzed the precision of what is given by the little device. And believe me, you don't want to know it, because it's totally, in many times, it's totally false. So if you get this data and you use it to improve, for example, some health matters such as diabetes, well, you will provide not good information, and it will be very dangerous for people. So
your point is that play with wellness, because it's like
Exactly.
the watches, it might increase your well-being, your connection with the car, but don't touch the health topics.
We can, but we have to be, all the industries have to be very fair with this. You don't have to put some product on the market if they are not validated precisely. Otherwise, it's too dangerous.
Isabelle?
Yes, I think without claiming ourselves being doctors, we are not medical companies, but nevertheless, we can touch the health through some benefits we can bring. For instance, doing some exercise, we know that it has a positive effect on the health. So this means even if we don't claim ourselves bringing health solution, nevertheless, through well-being, we can impact positively the health. And I think automotive industry should stay in this field and not go beyond.
Pretty clear. We are nearly at the end of our session. I would like you to, according to your own feelings and also directions, to give us just in one or two sentences, the directions that should be that we will follow for increasing the well-being. Which are the main threads? Stephanie, to start with.
What I want to say in the subject is that we have to offer to the client secure and intuitive new autonomous car, and to increase this feeling of well-being. The first step for me is to offer a secure experience in the vehicle, perhaps through some driver monitoring systems, which can help some parameters on it to work on the secure part of the interior vehicle, because it's the first steps. With these elements, the driver or the new client will be able to enjoy a full well-being experience in the car, and perhaps doing something else if it's sufficient for its mind.
That's already a very good synthesis. And try to make better and enrich it, but that's going to be complicated. Huh?
Yeah, that's a bit of a challenge. So I will keep it very short. But I think shared and automated vehicles have a huge potential for health and well-being. And what I'm really interested and motivated by is to go from concept to reality. And I think where we are at the moment, we're looking at beautiful concepts that look stylish. But if you scratch the surface, there is very often not sufficient consideration for some basic human factors elements. And I think now's the time to merge the two together and see what the actual design solutions will be.
We get a land. Jean-Bernard?
It's a challenge also. I would say maybe if we can help the customer and all the drivers in all around the world to have a better understanding of who they are, because if you know who you are, maybe you can understand what you have to do. I think people can be they have to become actors of their own well-being inside the car and outside the car, and maybe we can help for this.
Perfect. Michael?
Innovation is often a set of 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and we solve a lot of problems and we create some new ones, but then we find solutions to those. But I think on the whole we make a lot of progress in terms of people's health and well-being, and I think in this context that's going to be true as well. I look forward to bringing startups to the various automakers here who can bring it to the public.
And I would say that perceived safety and real safety are 2 issues. They are not really the same. So I would like to say that we have to do a lot of research on both perceived safety, but also on real safety, because as I told you, there is new tools to have in order to deal with these new positions in the autonomous car.
So to ensure, I think, a good well-being experience, we need to guarantee 2 dimensions. The first one is precise use cases, because if we don't know what for, we will not be able to define well-being solutions. And the second one is we need to know perfectly who is seated in the seat. So for me, these are the 2 key success factors for offering well-being.
Excellent. I'd like to thank you a lot for bringing together all these knowledges, insights, and expertise to our session today. And I would like you to give a round of applause to these fantastic people and knowledge. Thank you. The next session now, the next phase we have in the session is to add another dimension, because we'll see here how new companies or startups we have selected can bring a brick into this all these buildings that we have to build to bring this wellness. So I will leave the ground to the newbies into the system, and terrific people. We saw them all, so enjoy the next stage. It's going to be terrific. Thank you.